I'm saying that I've been 8 years in Man City, so I'm not be 8 more years. So that's why I'm more closer to leave than stay. But I didn't say I'm leaving. So never ever. I would say when I'm leaving, I would say I'm leaving, but I didn't say. So that was my approach. Maybe I was not correct to say, or that was my feeling right now. So we spoke with the club and said it's a lot of years, so we'll see what happens. But I not ruled it out absolutely to extend the contract. So when I said to Samuel, so I would love to stay because I would love to stay. So that's why I don't want to happen. I want to deny my feelings. I want to see my players. You know, it's 9 years today in the same club is an eternity, and I want to be sure it's the right decision, not just for me, for the club. It's the right decision for the players.
Sid Lowe is here. We also welcome James Ollie, a lovely background in his hotel room. James, this is going to be a terrible year, isn't it? Where we're going to be sat here going, is he going to go? Is he going to stay? When's he going to sign his new contract? This is going to drag on and on and on.
Yes, it is. And I think what he's trying to do here is head some of that off, really, because the sort of prevailing consensus behind the scenes is that he is going to go. I mean, I've been told that some members of his backroom staff have kind of not had enough, but I think want to go home and leave England. And I don't know how persuasive they will be over the course of the next sort of 8-9 months in making that decision. But yeah, I mean, every history tells you that when there's uncertainty over the manager, it does tend to impact on the title challenge. And I think what he's trying to do is head that off by suggesting, look, yes, there's a possibility I'll stay. Let's see how it goes and try and get into sort of the autumn at least before the sort of pressure in terms of having to make a decision ramps up.
Sid, I forget, you'll know. When he left Barcelona, when did we know he was leaving?
Quite early, but it was in the final season that we knew for sure. I think it was around about the springtime, but I must confess I can't off the top of my head remember. But it is certainly true that Guardiola kind of put his career path in place before announcing it. And I would agree, by the way, that what Guardiola partly is doing by saying, don't worry, I'll tell you, is kind of his way of saying, please don't ask. Please don't be giving me this every single week so that I can control the timings of it. And of course, what happened at Barcelona was that the decision was made for it to be Tito Vilanova who took over from him, who'd been his assistant manager. And that actually wasn't a decision that Guardiola liked very much, partly because he found out late.
What does this mean, Stevie, going forward?
I think it means a little bit of uncertainty with the players.
Yeah.
Because there are 2 or 3 of them that are coming towards the end of the contract, and they may behind the scenes have opportunities to leave.
And getting players in, isn't it? That affects you as well.
Well, it completely affects everything. But I think more importantly, the players that are there, if they have any sort of reason to take their eye off the ball, then that's not good. I mean, there's so many things going on at the club, particularly the fact that they might lose points during the season. There are so many negatives that we just have never seen before going into a season with Manchester City. And when you're going into a season and people are expecting you to win again, that's not a good place to start.
Of course, for Manchester City short term, it's all about who's going to be their goalkeeper, because suggestions are obviously that Ederson is on his way out, heading to Saudi Arabia. This is what he had to say to a report saying, clarifying that the note published by The Athletic yesterday, which refers to my alleged dissatisfaction with a colleague, it is completely false. I stay focused on the preparation for the season. By the way, that was about Stefan Ortega saying that he wasn't happy the praise that his number 2 goalkeeper was getting ahead of Ederson. Meanwhile, this is what Pep Guardiola had to say about Ederson and his possible departure.
I wish for the bottom of my heart Eddie continue with us. Replace Eddie is so difficult. Of course, what I said, it depends on him if he wanna. But I would love his stay, because I cannot imagine our process succeeded these last years without him. And he's an important figure in the locker room, in the presence and many things, and hopefully it will be a good sign for us. But if someone leaves at the end, maybe. But if no one leaves, I think we'll stay like we are.
No grey area there, James. He wants him to stay. Do you think he will?
Tempting is the Saudi cash, both for the club and for the player. I mean, this is a debate that so many players, not just in the Premier League but across Europe, have had with themselves and with the clubs over the last sort of year, 18 months since the Saudis started putting big money in. And look, I mean, they obviously have a replacement in Ortega, who's somebody who has been very consistent whenever he's come in, and I don't think they would see a sort of massive drop off in the level. And they may look at the money that they could get for Ederson and think, well, maybe we can reinvest that in some other areas of the squad. We all know that there's, financial issues that Manchester City are having to deal with in terms of the charges, and I think PSR is an issue for them. And they've shown in the past. You think about Cole Palmer being probably the most recent example of someone who had a pathway into the first team, but they decided to take the money and try and reinvest that elsewhere. You could see them doing it again. And look, I mean, Guardiola's never stood in anyone's way. He's always said, if someone wants to go, he will let them go. And I think this will come down to whether Ederson really wants to cash in and secure the money for life or not.
Obviously, rumours suggesting that Ederson could be out. Meanwhile, it doesn't look like that too many players will be coming in. We know for sure, though, one of them will be Savio Sid, of course, one of the brightest sparks for Girona last season. You've seen a lot of players make that move from La Liga to the Premier League. Some have succeeded, some have not. Where would he stand in that debate?
On the face of it, he has everything to succeed. He's a player who's quick, who I think makes the right decisions, who takes people on, who provides assists, who last season was really genuinely phenomenal for Girona. It was very interesting actually listening at the back end of the season to Girona's manager Michel, who was asked, obviously once Girona had finally done it and completed the season in which they got a Champions League place, in which they'd pushed for the title for quite a lot of the season, he was asked at which point did he really think that they genuinely had a chance of being like a proper contender. And he said, basically, when I turned up and I saw Savinho train, I thought this guy will elevate us to a level, which, by the way, doesn't bode well for them this season, elevate us to a level that we didn't anticipate. And I think he has everything. And with the right coaching, and of course with Guardiola, you would imagine he'll get that. I think he could be a really fantastic player.
We've seen a lot of him, Stevie.
Yeah.
What I would like about him from a Manchester City point of view, he's direct.
Yeah, and I would suggest that right-hand side where you've got to wonder how long Bernardo Silva is going to be at City. Even if he stays there, how many games has he got in his legs? You have to think that that's where Savio plays. But it is a different style to what we're used to under Pep. And we saw that when Grealish came in. Mm-hmm. He had to adjust the way he played the game. Now, do you hurt Savio by adjusting his game to a little bit more possession as opposed to, as you said, being direct? I would suggest that probably would happen. But then again, if Pep's going to leave, he's 19 years of age, then he's got a huge career ahead of him at Manchester City.
Well, we saw it then. Let's talk about Arsenal, shall we? I haven't talked about them much over the last few days. Of course, the story of their last two seasons, certainly domestically, is the fact that they've just fallen short. 84 points, of course, 2 years ago, where they finished second. They secured 5 more points, though, this time round, but still finished second. 2 points behind Manchester City. Let's hear, shall we, from Odegaard, their captain.
Martin, so good to have you here in the US. You keep getting closer and closer to Manchester City. After just falling short this time with the points, how did you lift the team after that? And you as a captain, what was your role?
I think, to be honest, it's quite easy. I think everyone is so motivated to come back even stronger. Obviously, after the season, we all felt a bit disappointed, a bit down. But yeah, I've seen the team now coming back and so sharp and so ready. And I think everyone is just ready to come back and be even better. So that's been quite easy. And yeah, I think we're working hard and we're prepping. So yeah, hopefully we can win it this time.
The fact that you guys have just gotten closer and closer to Manchester City in the back-to-back season, I think for so long we've all had Man City on this pedestal that they seem untouchable, kind of invincible, dare I say, about Arsenal. But you guys got so close again. Do you now look at them as almost beatable now?
I think we felt that, last season as well, and that we were there, and yeah, we beat them as well, so that was important for us, but it wasn't enough, and that's what we have to think about now, how we can be even better to make sure that we win it. And it's not just about Man City, but it's about the whole picture and all the games we play. So so yeah, hopefully we can do it this time.
And what about for the Champions League? Where do you think you probably fell short there?
Again, small margins. I think in all of these big games, small margins, and we weren't sharp enough in the 2 games there. So yeah, but I think again it's down to us to improve and make sure we come back stronger, and then we have a lot to play for. So yeah, it's gonna be good.
With all the football being played, is it hard to kind of manage both, like such a deep run in the Champions League as well as doing what you do in the Premier League itself?
I mean, it's demanding. I think you play with against a lot of good teams, so it takes a lot, but I think that's what we all want to do. We all want to be at the biggest stage, play the biggest games, and I think it's something we really enjoy. So yeah, I think that's a good thing, and just something we have to be ready for and get used to.
And final question now, of course, everyone kind of repeats that it's been 20 years since Arsenal have won the league title. You guys get so close. Do you feel the weight of that going into the new season because you're such young players?
I don't think we can think too much about what happened before we came to the club, but it's a part of the history and we have to acknowledge that. But yeah, I feel like we're getting closer and I feel like we're improving all the time, and that's the main thing. Last year we made some history as well, and we did a lot of good things. We have to remember that, and then just make sure we push a little bit more to win it, and then everyone will be happy, I think.
James with us now. James, you're with Arsenal. If I'm an Arsenal fan, I'm feeling good going into the season. There's no reason why you can't imagine that the momentum from those last two campaigns can't carry on to a third.
No, and I mean, obviously they didn't win the league, but they got 89 points, which is a Premier League record for them. They won 28 games, which is a Premier League record for them. They scored more goals than they ever had in a Premier League campaign before. So, all of the numbers, and I mean, I interviewed Arteta 3 or 4 weeks ago, and, he said, when they do their internal review of the season, all of the internal numbers tell us that we should have won the league. The only number that we didn't finish top on was the points, which obviously is the one that matters. So I think when they look at what they need to do to improve, we're not talking about wholesale changes. We're not talking about a sort of radical overhaul of mentality or playing style or any of that. They've been through that. They've got through that process. And what I do get a sense, travelling around with the team and being with them out here, that they are relaxed. It's stable. It's a very sort of settled environment, and obviously they're bringing Calafiori in to help improve that. And left back was an issue for them last season. When you talk to some of the people around the club about, okay, so where can you find the improvements? They do cite left back as being an issue because obviously Jurrien Timber got injured in pre-season over here in the US last year. And then they had a situation where Zinchenko was filling in there, Kivior was filling in there. They didn't have a settled sort of natural left back who was in form, playing well in that position. And with Timber coming back and with Calafiori, obviously he can play centre back as well, but he can also play on the left. You sort of think, well, that's a kind of obvious problem area that they've solved. And then the other one that everyone looks at is the centre forward. But again, they scored so many goals last season and they were so fluid. And Arteta would say that Kai Havertz has really sort of made the team click playing in that 9, that maybe they don't need to go and spend big money on a centre forward. They did look at Benjamin Sesko at Red Bull. I think he was kind of their first choice target, but obviously he ended up signing a new contract. And I think since then they've not really been convinced about the options that are out there at the prices that are being quoted, which is not to say that they won't necessarily sign a forward, but I think it just feeds back to that central point, is that they don't feel panicked, they don't feel as though they've got to go and do something major. They've just got to be a touch more consistent, turn maybe a couple of those draws into wins, and if they replicate that, then they win the league.
Words like stable and settled, pretty boring, Stevie, but pretty important, I imagine.
Huge. Yeah, absolutely. When you're turning up every day and you know exactly what you're about, what you're going to be doing, you know what's expected, you know what you're capable of, what you expect from yourself and everybody around you, and in the back of your mind, you think it's going to happen. There's not a question of can we, could we, maybe, what about them? It's all about yourself and your team. And that's exactly where Arsenal are. And it feels like it. We've spoken about Man City 5 minutes ago. And there feels a sort of uncertainty about Man City for some reason. And so if you're Arsenal, you can't wait for the season to start, because if nothing else, you know that you're turned into a bit of a machine. And the fact that we're talking about a left back being a problem tells you that there's not that much wrong. You're actually looking. You're looking for things that you might be able to get better. And the centre forward position's the same. We have Hearts. I mean, listen, look how good Liverpool were with Bobby Firmino, who hardly scored any goals, but he knitted it all together, as James just said. Arteta thinks that Havertz can knit it all together. So, listen, if I'm an Arsenal player or an Arsenal fan, I'm looking forward to this year. I think they're the favourites going into this.
Do you really, Steve?
Absolutely.
You're ahead of Manchester City?
Well, look, we've just been speaking about City. You know, we don't know what's going on with the manager. There's going to be questions all season long about the manager. Kevin De Bruyne, the last couple of seasons, has missed a lot of games.
Yeah.
Rodri missed games last season. It's never happened before. Is he going to be able to play all season? The goalkeeper might be going. We ain't talking like that about Arsenal, are we?
Wow. There we are.
There you go.
And wherever Arsenal go, of course, Gunnosaurus is there as well. Would you like to see him messing around? Oh, who wouldn't? Who doesn't need this in their lives? So here he is, look. This is against the Rams mascots, of course, the LA Rams in NFL. Oh. Is that it? Is that what this is? No, this is terrible, Pete. Why are we showing this? Oh, look, he hits him. Oh, not again.
Oh, no.
Is it the same thing? Oh, God, this is awful. Well, there we go. Brilliant. Fantastic. That was worth it.
Can we play it again?
No, please don't. Whose idea was that? Meanwhile, Chelsea have been quite busy, haven't they, in the transfer market? You take a look at the number of players that have left Stamford Bridge, those coming in as well. There was a lot of talk about who their new goalkeeper was going to be. Filip Jorgenson coming from Villarreal. Sid, what sort of goalkeeper are they getting?
Well, do you know what? This is one of those where I'm not entirely sure what answer to give you. Because I had moments during last season where I wasn't convinced, where there was moments where I thought he looked a little bit uneasy. But to be fair to him, that was mostly in the first part of the season. His statistics were really, really good in terms of the number of shots saved, in terms of the amount of goals conceded as a percentage of the number of shots he faced. He had games where he looked absolutely phenomenal, where he really did look completely in control. He would make extraordinary saves, and a lot of them. But as I say, there were moments when I was a little bit unsure about him. And so I think if you'd asked me at the start of last season, I would have thought, I don't see it. If you ask me now, at the end of last season, having seen what he did over the last 3 or 4 months, I would say this is really quite an interesting signing. Now, I'm not really in a position to judge the goalkeepers Chelsea already have and to whether or not this is an upgrade, but I do think they've signed themselves a pretty good goalkeeper who's good at shot stopping, who's pretty good with his feet, who seems to have the personality to make mistakes in it for it not to sink him and to continue to play. And so in that sense, I think this is quite an interesting signing.
Pretty good with his feet, though, Sid. Isn't that exciting, considering we know, and Maresca shouted at James, saying that they want to play out from the back?
Yeah, and that's important. So, of course, that's important that he can do that. It's important that he can adapt to what Maresca wants him to do. And I think that's probably part of this. Although, honestly, watching him last year, I would not have looked at him and said, OK, if you write a list of goalkeepers who adhere, if you like, to this a modern approach of being good with their feet, he's not necessarily at the very top of that list. I think he was good with his feet, and I think his range of passing improved over the season, partly, of course, simply for the very basic reason that he was asked to do it when previously perhaps he hadn't been. But I wouldn't necessarily have gone, right, OK, here's a list of 5 goalkeepers who were the best with their feet in Spain last season. I'm not sure that he would have got onto that list, maybe in 4th or 5th.
Oh, it doesn't bode well, James.
No, and do you know what? I think it actually speaks to a time-honoured issue at Chelsea, which is who's signing the players and how much of an input does the manager actually have. It's interesting to hear Sid talk like that because, look, we all know that Chelsea, there's a lot of voices in their recruitment policy. They've got 2 co-sporting directors. They've got another head of recruitment. They've got a goalkeeping coach who was quite influential in bringing in Robert Sanchez. And then, of course, they've got the owners who've got their own sort of input into the transfers and obviously ultimately to make the decision on where the money goes. So the manager has to feed into that. And I know that Pochettino got particularly frustrated about that. It was something that Thomas Tuchel got frustrated about in his brief tenure. And it was something that Graham Potter tried to accept, but he had quite a lot of influence in some of the transfers. I think Noni Madueke, for example, was a player that he was tracking at Brighton for a long period of time. So Dewsbury Hall is effectively a Maresca signing here, and I think there's a lot of pressure on that kid because he's the one that Maresca's pushed to get in. And I think he's given them a list of one or two others. I think he wanted to bring the goalkeeper with him from Leicester as well, actually. And the fact that they've ended up going in a different direction just sort of, again, speaks to that idea of, well, there are multiple voices going on here. And clearly the recruitment team think they found a better fit for the style of play and for the longer-term strategy that Chelsea have. And Maresca is already perhaps having to make one or two compromises in terms of what he wants to do versus what the club want him to do. And that tension is what's done for Pochettino, it's what's done for Tuchel, it's what's done for Potter. And that's what Maresca's got to manage over the coming months.